Hi folks, it's Rob from Totally Tanked here. I'm at the Australian Armour and Artillery Museum, and today we've got a very special treat. We've got Nick and Phil, the tank twins. Can I call you that?
Yeah.
Because you guys have restored and put together so many tanks. We're standing in front of them. One of them right now. This is the Hetzer. How do we feel? When did the Hetzer come across?
It was about late 14, something like that. Yeah.
Wow, so right at the beginning of the collection you brought
one of the first German tanks he had, yeah. There
you go. And we've had a couple of questions from our folks who wanted to hear you interviewed and said, you're Zimmerit, you're specialised in Panthers or something like that when you're at the...
Well, we kind of had a bit of experience with them. We did a Jag Panther complete for the Wield Foundation, or as it was Mike Gibbs' collection then. And then all of a sudden we were with Bruce Crompton outfit, and the chance to do the Panther came up for Rob.
And you put together the Zimmerit composition yourselves, because the original stuff is quite toxic and very flammable.
Yes, yeah, we found an area on the tank when we were restoring it which still had the original Zimmerit on it. But then, because they all have their own pattern depending who made it, that's an MAN pattern. So we just copied that, and we found that floor tile adhesive and sawdust and PVA glue seemed to copy it quite well, so we just went with that.
And yesterday we were at the Oz Armour Museum yesterday for the parade. The Panther wasn't cranking over terribly well. How did that go?
Yeah, well, we gave up and just press the starter button. What normally happens is that you crank it up and then just pull this ring at the back and it engages the starter, the inertia starter. But where the ring goes through onto a rod through to the starter motor, the atmosphere up here, I think you just got it too damp and it's rusted. So we've got to work on that and free it all off. Probably might get it running for tomorrow, but at the moment we just have to use
In World War II, in the actual field, how would they have normally started, with the crank, or would there some other way?
They prefer to go, well, they're advised to use the crank handle because the battery technology in them days was quite bad, so it did save the batteries for the radios and things like that.
And you've come across to the Oz Armour Fest today, or for the weekend. You've travelled a long way. You come out every year, and
yeah. This is about the fifth time I think we've been over. First one was to bring this. And then we came out again between times, and then Panther I think was the next one we brought over, wasn't it? Unfortunately that came over on the roll on roll off, which took about 6 weeks to get here.
And you're on the ship with it?
No. The idea is we fly out, but of course COVID came along, which stopped all that. So it was stuck here for nearly a year before we could get out here and commission it. Which was a bit of a pain.
Now, for the question we have to ask all tank people in the world, what's the favourite? And for you folks, I'm going to ask, what's the most difficult tank you've had, or field that you've had, or like to talk about? I'll give you a second to think about that one.
Well, construction-wise, probably the Flak.
So this is the
251 or 3-ton Flak.
So this is the one you were saying before is the only one in the world at the moment. So it's the unarmoured version of the 251 Flak
chassis. Yeah, it's the chassis mainly a 3-ton chassis, unarmoured underneath, no belly armour at all. But all the superstructure is all armoured.
And you're saying that was the most difficult?
It was difficult in as much there's so much missing information-wise. Hilary Doyle did some really marvellous books, the Panther Tracks series, and he'd already gone into a lot of the detail, sort of, which was useful, and he helped us a lot with some drawings and everything else. But unfortunately there was a lot of gaps, especially on the interior. We trawled, and I think we managed to find about 40 photographs, original wartime photographs, which were sort of helpful and not in other ways. It's the usual thing, there's a guy standing in a way or something, and it doesn't really give you any size or anything like that. Eventually we managed to get our head around how all the seating position worked, how the rear facing seating worked, how the floor all folds in on itself, all the seats fold down inside, so that it gives you a bigger area to operate the gun from. And then there's storage under that, which is for spare wheel. There's gun racks underneath it for rifles. So there's a lot of information there, a huge amount, which was missing. So it was a bit of a job working all that one out.
So it looks very similar to a 251, but the only parts you use from a 251 are, say, the nose part. That's original. The rest of it, we had to figure it out.
And the Hetzer here behind us, where did that come from?
I think it came from a museum in Germany somewhere. And it had been touted around a bit.
And you had to do all the restoration work on it?
Yeah, it was basically a G13, but slightly different to the normal G13s, because after the war they scooped up most of for the Swiss consignment of G13s. They were using a lot of what was already in the factories. So the only thing they didn't use was obviously the guns, because Rheinmetall had been blown up. That was the end of them. So they weren't supplying guns anymore. But the hulls were all just lying about. So this is actually a hull that was returned to the factory for refurb. And then they got involved in the G13 program. So it's actually got a wartime...
So it's gone forward, it's gone from a Hetzer to a G13 and then
back to a Hetzer again.
Wow.
And then we built the whole lot. We managed to reproduce a complete 39 gun for it instead of the 40, which was the post-war gun. Used some of the parts out of the 40, which were similar, but a lot of it had to be remade. All the gearboxes and everything had to be remade. Wow. Big job. All to the end of the barrel. Normally they have a thread on the end, so that's all been put back as it would have been on the originals. All the gun sights and everything else changed back. They changed just about everything on a G13. There's not one square inch of this thing that hasn't been changed by the Swiss over the period of time.
And then you had to change it all back?
Yeah. We had to, when we got it, had huge amount of their way of disarming a tank was to lay some plastic in the back, get the engine out, lay some plastic in the back and fill it up with concrete. So it was just full of concrete. So it was in there with a breaker and broke it all out.
And so you had to get in there with a jackhammer and just break it all out?
Smash it all out.
Wow, okay.
And of course there was lumps of timber and everything in there, so the old railway sleepers and everything.
The funny part about it is that they chucked a hook into the middle of it so you could pull it out, but with concrete it just goes into everything. There's no way it was going to come back out. It had to be broken. Had to be broken up.
What about you, Nick? What do you think is the most challenging or your favourite?
The most challenging, I think, was the Panther. Yeah, that was
different ways, though, wasn't it? It was in different ways.
The biggest problem was the fact that we were under a time schedule on it, and 4 years is pretty quick for something that, and very intense for 4 years, almost full time. Evenings as well. You go home and you just trawl through the internet, getting the information we needed to make sure it's absolutely spot on.
Now, one last question, just before you have to get back to whatever fun things you're doing around here. Can you tell us anything about what you've got going on at the collection at the moment?
Well, at the moment we're consulting and making small detail parts for Kevin Wheatcroft through Tay Engineering, and they're doing 4 Hetzers.
4 Hetzers, yeah.
At the moment.
4 Hetzers. We're mainly doing the detail work on them and consultation. They're throwing that at us, so they're basically feeding off us, which is great. We don't mind that. We'd rather do that than lose the information completely. And they've been very, very good. And they're making a superb job of it. We've got one more paint job to finish when we get home. That's an ambush job on the command vehicle. Okay. There'll be 4 of them in total. 2 Skodas and 2 BMMs. And they're all wartime hulls.
All right. Any last words you'd like to throw in?
We just love being here. I wish I could live here.
Yeah. 20 years ago we'd have jumped at it, but not now.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure having you, and thanks to Australian Armour and Artillery Museum for having us and bringing you two out here to be able to talk to you.
Thank you very much.